The Queen sent down the Royal Marine Band, Her Majesty's Royal Marine Band, to provide music for this occasion. It was incredible. One of my most exciting assignments.
Now we're gonna go into 1987. I believe a real bad ice storm hit North Carolina, and the tower for WRAL collapsed. And so while they were getting up a new tower, you guys, I think, had to borrow a signal from, I think, WKFT out of Fayetteville to transmit your programming while the new tower was being erected.
That's right. Jarrell, you have really done your homework, and I congratulate you on that. One of the worst things that can happen to a radio or a television station is to have the transmission tower fall. And the ice stuck on one side of the cables of that huge tower. And the engineers say that when the ice melted and fell off of that heavy side, those cables began to sway back and forth. And they say that it was the cables pulling back and forth that brought that tower down. Fortunately, no one got hurt, but we were in a real predicament. First of all, the arrangement that was made with that Fayetteville station was fantastic in terms of how quickly it was put together. On the other hand, it cut our signal way down in power and in extension until that tower was put back up, which took about, I think it took about 2 years. So, you know, people who used to watch us in that period of time on the fringes were not able to get us anymore, and so we had to try to build back that audience after we got our new tower. But there again, Jim Goodman and the management team were really brilliant putting the station back together and getting us on the air with a brand new tower, and they did it as quickly as they could. But you're right, in the interim, we depended on that station in Fayetteville to transmit our signal.
And going from there, talk about the night when you were covering the devastating tornado, the after effect, back in November of '88.
You know, the anniversary is here, almost right upon us. One of the saddest, heart-rending stories you can do, Jarrell, as you know, is to go out after something like that and see families who have had their everything that they have just blown to smithereens. In addition to that, people were killed in that tornado. A child was killed, and several other people were killed. But I'll never forget that day. It was a warm day for late November. In fact, I was out working around the house here in shirt sleeves. My wife was in Baltimore visiting with her parents for the Thanksgiving holiday. And it was so warm during the day, perfectly clear like a spring day. And we had, at the time, a black Labrador retriever. And when night came on, the storms, the lightning and thunder began to come upon us. And our dog was scared to death of lightning and thunder. And the lightning was flickering. It was just, they were not bolts. They were just flickering. The whole sky was kind of flickering. It was strange looking. And I was down on the floor with my dog with my arms around him because it kind of comforted him if somebody would sit with him and put their arms around him in a storm. And I got a call from a friend of mine who listened to these scanners all the time. And his words were, "Charlie, all hell has broken loose in North Raleigh." And he said, "It sounds like a tornado." And so I immediately called the news director, Connie Howard, and told her. And Connie said, "I'll get right back to you." And she called our great photographer, Jay Jennings, and called me right back and said, "Wait there, Jay Jennings is coming by your house, and you can drive on out Glenwood Avenue with him and see what you can see." Well, as we drove out there toward the shopping center, you remember where the old Kmart was, out there off Glenwood. Everything was flat. I mean, everything was on the ground. And the firemen were still digging through the rubble because at least one man was trapped in the rubble. Now, on that night, in those days, stations signed off. We were not on the air. Neither were the other stations. So I got as much of a story together as I could by talking with the firemen and the law enforcement people on the scene, and found my way over to a phone booth and called our radio station, which was on the air, and it began an all-day, 24-hour or 36-hour coverage of the devastation. But the heart-rending thing, believe me, one of the hardest stories to do is to walk into a situation where families are standing there, even if they haven't been hurt, and everything that they have is, you can imagine if your place were blown all to pieces, everything that you have strewn all over everywhere, and being unable to recover it, all of it either burned or damaged or ruined by rain. And you see animals standing by the doorsteps of houses, dogs standing by the doorsteps where they used to live, totally confused. So it's a story that you don't like to cover, but it's necessary to cover them, and so we dealt with it.
Now, back in the beginning, I was saying WRAL was real familiar with the people in the area and the community. Now, tell me about some of the events that WRAL has had over the years for the community, like Coats for the Children, which is still going on today, and Bob the Barterlaben's specialty, Dialing for Dollars.
Dialing for Dollars went on before I got to the station. I mean, I saw it, of course, but when I got to the station, the big thing, the big event and money raiser for nonprofit was for United Cerebral Palsy of North Carolina, and we would put on a 20-hour telethon and raise lots of money and bring lots of awareness of the condition of cerebral palsy to our audience. And the station has a tremendous community outreach. You mentioned Coats for Kids. That's still very viable and provides warmth and comfort to so many people. And the outreach of that station is enormous, and I was always proud to participate in so many of those events with my team of colleagues, where we were actually doing something for the community in the way of helping people.
And that's definitely what it's all about, being a service to your community. And I didn't know this until looking at old promos that WRAL used to air wrestling back in the 70s and early 80s. And surprisingly, in one of the promos was a pre-WWF WCW Ric Flair fighting at the Dorton Arena.
Yeah, we were, some of us in the news department, we were pretty glad when wrestling left Channel 5. Not because it was a bad thing. I mean, I suppose it was harmless, but the fans would gather and the wrestlers would come in there, and